Hey guys, welcome back to Hands On channel. Today we're going to do a little prepping video. I haven't done one in a while, and I've kind of been doing prepping still on the side, and I just hadn't really been talking about it because we've been so busy with all these other things. But I thought it was time we do a prepping video. And first of all, let me just tell you this. If you haven't seen our other prepping videos, then you're going to want to go back and watch those, because the most important things that you need to start stocking up on, if you're not already, is food and water and medicines and stuff like that. You know, the bare essentials for survival. This video is not going to be really about that. This is just going to be other stuff that I've picked up along the way that I think are really good prepping items to have right now before it's too late, so, or before the SHTF happens. So let's get right into this. First of all, duct tape. There's 1,000,001 uses for this stuff. I mean, if you've watched any of the prepping videos, I've seen guys make all kinds of stuff out of duct tape alone. Of course, there's different grades. I've got several of the cheap stuff that might be used for bartering in the future. And I've got several of the better, you know, this one's actually duct tape brand. It's a little bit better than this cheaper stuff here. So I've got some different grades of duct tape all the way up to Gorilla Tape. And obviously, you know, the Gorilla Tape is the best duct tape that I've come across. So that would be saved for my own personal use. And I probably wouldn't want to barter that until things got really desperate, you know, so let's just put it that way. But for bartering and for just practical uses around the homestead, around the farm, around your house, duct tape just almost can't be beat to get you through until you can do a proper repair. So I suggest that you get several rolls of that stuff, and it's probably a good idea to get different grades. That way, again, you can use some of that for bartering in the future. I think in a collapsed economy situation, stuff like this could become not only critical to have, but a critical item for trading. So keep that in mind. Duct tape is a big one. Another one along the same vein is baling wire. Get yourself some baling wire. I mean, you know, we used to joke about it as a kid and stuff, you know, when I worked on cars and stuff for a living, that you know, people would bale and wire their mufflers up and do all kinds of different stuff that, you know, really you shouldn't do with baling wire. But if it gets you down the road and gets you by until you can make a proper repair, that's great stuff to have. And again, like duct tape, baling wire has 1,000,001 uses. So, I mean, you can make stuff out of it. You can mend fences, you can just do any number of different things that you're going to need wire for. So get you some good stout baling wire. I usually just get the regular steel stuff, not the galvanized stuff, because by the time it rusts out, I'll probably be dead. So get the thickest stuff you can find. This was a huge roll of baling wire at one time, but as you can see, I use it quite often, and this is not even in survival mode. This is just around the property, mending fences and doing different things like that. If you've got chickens or you've got any kind of livestock, you probably already got a ton of this stuff, but if you're new to that, you probably better stock up on some of this. Over at Home Depot and Lowe's, they have a big, like a metal bar that's wrapped with the stuff, and I bought some of that here recently because I knew my stash was getting low. And again, you know, if you can stock up on it, that may be another item that'd be great for bartering in the future. So baling wire, that's a big thing to have. Another thing kind of along the same lines is some good rope. I've got a couple of different, I've actually got 3 or 4 different varieties of rope here. I just picked this one up the other day at Harbor Freight, and it was like on sale for like $5. I couldn't resist. It was a camo 3/8 by 75 foot poly rope. I think it's rated for 300-pound working load. So, you know, pay attention to that. This other one here, my wife picked up like, I don't know, a week earlier than that. And it's 100 foot, but it was only rated for somewhere around 100 pounds 110-pound working load. So pay attention to that. Your different ropes are going to be able to do different things. But, you know, if you needed to just tie anything up, if you needed to build a temporary shelter or something out in the wilderness, you know, you've got this, you could string this across between 2 trees, hang a tarp over it, boom, you've got yourself shelter. You know, if you needed to pull something with this, like up the side of a big hill or something like that, you know, maybe you're out in the woods and you need to pull, maybe your spouse is injured or one of your children is injured and you need to pull them to safety. Well, if you've got this rope, that's going to help you out quite a lot. And also, along with the rope, you need to know how to tie different knots and stuff like that. There's a lot of really good videos out there. Learn those now while the internet's up. You know, maybe even make a printout of some of that kind of stuff so that, you know, if the internet ever did go out or the power went out, you'd be able to look at those knots and figure them out in a book or something like that. Some of the survival books have that sort of information as well. Next up, you know, my wife picked these up. They're 75% alcohol wipes. And, you know, a little while back, you couldn't get any of this kind of stuff because of the, you know, everybody going out and trying to get the hand sanitizer and stuff like that. So now that the supply has caught up to the demand, it's probably a good idea to stock up on some of this kind of stuff. You know, if I were out here in the shop working and, you know, suddenly I cut half my finger off, I could grab one of these alcohol wipes. Yeah, it's going to burn like hell, you know, but I could grab one of these and it might keep me from getting infected, you know, and it'll keep things clean, especially in a grid down situation or even an economic collapse. You know, if we get to the point where you can't afford to keep your electric bill going anymore, you can't afford to pay your bills and your water bill or your electric bill gets shut off, there may be a time when you need to use things like this. Now, maybe not the alcohol ones, but you could get baby wipes and other things like that, just different wipes that you'd be able to, you know, take a trucker bath if you had to for a while, or a bucket bath, and use some of this kind of stuff on your hands and things like that to make sure that you're not spreading germs around. That's the main thing. So good idea to stock up on some of this kind of stuff now that it's back in stock, because again, we've already seen it before, you know, just like the toilet paper thing. You know, little off topic here, but, you know, again, toilet paper. Hopefully you guys that are into prepping learned a lesson from that toilet paper shortage, and ever since then you've been buying a couple of extra packages every week since then, and hopefully you'll never be in that situation again. So with a lot of this stuff, it's like that. We're buying it now because it wasn't available before, and we know the value of this stuff when it's in demand. Again, another item that could be great for bartering to somebody. You know, if somebody else didn't think of this, that might get you a couple cans of beans, or, you know, maybe even some ammo or whatever you may need to trade for, because starvation is the great equalizer. Right now we live in this world where we're all divided by class and stuff like that, and we're being more and more divided all the time. But when everybody starts starving, that is a great equalizer. So things that right now, I guess what I'm trying to say is like bullets, for example. You know, yeah, they're really expensive and hard to come by right now. But when people start starving to death and they realize they can't eat those bullets, they may be willing to barter for something like this, or for some food that you have or something like that. I really do believe that food and water, clean drinking water and food, are going to be the most critical currency that there is in the next few years. I don't know how fast it'll happen, but, you know, if the economy continues on the path that it's going, and I see no reason that it wouldn't, then there will be a collapse of the United States currency, the dollar. So be prepared for that. And if you own things that could be used for bartering later, that might just put some food in your belly or save your life. So be smart about it. Here's another one that, again, you know, this may not save your life, but it could actually. There is one use for steel wool that could save your life. There's a way to start fires with a 9-volt battery and a piece of steel wool. It's very fascinating. If you've never done it before yourself, I suggest that you go do it. Just get a little small piece, tear off like a corner, and, you know, get in a place where it's safe to do this, and grab yourself a 9-volt battery and stick it to that steel wool. It's just amazing how the current, you can see it going through all the little fibers of the steel wool. It's very cool to just watch and see it as a science experiment. It'd be a lot of fun to do that with your kid or something if you were trying to get them into, you know, just interesting things. I know a lot of us are stuck at home right now for different reasons. Some of it's because of weather right now. Actually, we're iced in right now. That's why I'm all bundled up, because it's pretty darn cold out here. Like, I think it's the high for the last 2 days has been like 21 degrees, and where I'm from, we're not used to that, so it's really cold to us. But yeah, steel wool, man, it's a great thing to have around. Not only for cleaning different things, like cleaning the glass on your wood stove is one example, or cleaning up a piece of rusty metal that, you know, maybe you need to fix a part that you're working on, and to get that generator going or something, you could probably use a little bit of steel wool and clean up whatever that part is and make it a lot better. You know, it's not as good as a wire brush, obviously, or a wire wheel, but it has a certain purpose. There are places you can use steel wool that you can't use anything else. So I advise you to have some. You know, again, don't stock up on a whole lot of it, but have some for possible bartering and just to use around your homestead, because it's super handy. I'm sure there's a lot of other uses that I haven't thought about for that. Here's another one for you. Again, because of the shortages mainly that we had before, because of the early lockdowns and stuff like that, isopropyl alcohol was pretty hard to come by at one time. Now it's kind of caught up with the demand, so you should be able to go get the stuff. It may be a little bit more money than it was before, but go get a bunch of this stuff. This stuff right here it's like liquid gold, and especially as far as fighting infections and cleaning up scrapes and bruises. And think about it, if you're out there doing a lot more manual labor and you're cutting your own wood and you're doing other things so that you can survive, then more than likely you're going to have more cuts and calluses and blisters and bruises and stuff like that. So alcohol is a good thing to have. It can save your life, keep you from getting gangrene or getting infected or anything like that. So definitely stock up on this. Again, another thing that could be a great barter item. Maybe you don't want to give away a whole bottle, but if you could come up with some small little bottles or little bags even that you could put this into like a nice distribution size container, little containers of alcohol could go a long ways. Or even these smaller ones like this, if you want to trade and barter with someone for a whole bottle of this stuff. I mean, again, liquid gold when you need it. So right now we all take this for granted because it's easy to get. You can go down to the dollar store and get them for like 85 cents or 99 cents of one of these size containers. And sometimes you can find the even bigger ones, and I recommend that. But yeah, alcohol, man, a lifesaver. And along those lines, vodka, especially the cheaper vodka. Look for the stuff that's been distilled quite a few times and stuff like that, but the cheaper vodka is a great alternative for alcohol if you get into a situation where you can't get this stuff anymore. So might be a good idea to have some cheap vodka on hand too. And also think about it, as a bartering item. Alcohol, even if you're not a big drinker, and I'm not a big drinker. I drink once in a while, just, and I can barely handle it anymore because I just don't drink very much. Like one or two drinks, man, and I'm like, I'm stumbling, because I just don't drink very often. But other people drink a lot. And those people that drink a lot, if suddenly they can't get their alcohol anymore, and, you happen to have a bottle of vodka that you could trade them, I mean, those people, I wouldn't advise you to take advantage of anybody like this, but at the same time, survival is key. And if you come across an addict like that is willing to trade you, their entire refrigerator full of food for that bottle of vodka, I don't know. Use your discretion. I wouldn't advise you to do that because that bad karma could come back on you. But, my point is that people that are addicts and alcoholics and stuff like that, and even tobacco guys, you can even if you're not a smoker, it probably wouldn't be a bad idea to have some tobacco around. Have a little bit of whatever, a couple packs of different cigarettes or some cigars, some different things like that, because if you come across an addict that hasn't had a cigarette in several days, they would probably trade you just about anything for to be able to feed that addiction. So again, be careful with that, because I believe that, what goes around comes around, and you don't want to be ripping people off. But at the same time, what I'm trying to say is that's going to give you a leg up in negotiation if you have some of those things that the addicts might need. So, obviously stay within the realm of the law, but, cigarettes and alcohol are both legal for anybody that's over the age of 21 to go purchase and consume. So, and they don't take up very much space. So that would be something really good to have around. All pretty good stuff. And again, I'm trying to give you things that are outside the box here that you may not be thinking about, and also things that other people haven't already covered on their channels, hopefully. One of the last things here, I've got three more things. Let's run over these real quick. Gloves. Get extra gloves right now. Go stock up on extra gloves right now. If you work outside, if you do gardening, if you do mechanic work or any kind of work like that, go get extra gloves right now. I usually wear gloves like 99% of the time now. I used to hate them, and I still kind of hate wearing them because it's inconvenient to do small, tasks that you need to have the dexterity to do with gloves on. You have to usually take your gloves off for that kind of stuff. But for everything else, for heavy work, for heavy lifting, take the extra few seconds, get those gloves on. That'll save you from getting a splinter. It'll save you from getting, an infection. And you won't even have to get the alcohol out because you will never have gotten cut to begin with. So glove up, get lots of gloves. I mean, I prefer the leather ones, but these are okay. I bought these over at Harbor Freight. They're the mechanic gloves. They're okay. And like this time of the year, one of the things I like them for is just to keep my hands warm. Where leather gloves aren't quite as good, these are a little better about keeping your hands warm, and you can work outside with them. So I highly recommend these. They're like $6 a pair or something. Stock up on these. Get your wife some, get your kids some, everything. Get a whole drawer full of gloves. And again, it may just be that you can get them for $6 or $7 today, and they may be $15 a year from now. So if you're gonna do work outside, have gloves. Next up on the list here, this is just kind of a bonus. Get some of these ammo cans. Not only are they great for storing your ammo in, but they're great for everything else too. If you need to store anything, they have a seal on top of them, and they're dry. They're dry storage. And if you wanted to have a cache somewhere, a backup supply, that if you're the ultimate prepper, perhaps you're afraid that, one day somebody could break into your house and they steal all your preps. Well, if you've got a backup supply or a cache somewhere, then you'll know where to go and get that stuff. And you could easily put quite a bit of stuff. Now this one's all dirty and old because I found it on our new property out there that we just purchased. Someone just left it discarded. So I'd want to check and make sure this thing, the seal still works and everything's still good on it. But most of the time they are, because they're military, military spec cans. I don't recommend getting the cheap Chinese knockoff versions. I don't like them. I like the old military style. They're a little bit of a pain and a hassle to open up and stuff, but that's good. That's all good stuff to me. It keeps them kind of locked in. And what I'm getting at is, if you had to, and I don't really advise this most of the time, but if you had to, you could bury this stuff somewhere. You could get a couple, 2 or 3 of these and bury them. Now, will they last forever buried? No. I wouldn't leave them in there for 20 years, but for like 6 months, a year, something like that, that's not going to give this container enough time to rust through. Another thing you could look into for larger stuff is get yourself some of these Lowe's or Home Depot buckets that have the lid on them. They're airtight, they're watertight, and the great thing about these is, they're cheaper and they hold more. You can put quite a bit of stuff in here. You could put some food storage in here, some ammo, a boomstick, whatever you need. You could get it in here. Now, again, if I was going to bury anything like a boomstick, I would definitely want to coat it down with some kind of Cosmoline or some grease or something like that. And again, I'm not saying bury them all, and I don't even know if that's a good idea. I'll let you know how many of my tools I have buried like that right now. This many. I have 0 tools buried because my philosophy is, if you have to bury them, you've already lost the right to use them. You've already lost the Second Amendment if you have to bury your boomstick. So anyways, try not to go too far off on the politics on that, but that's my thoughts on it. But if you had to bury some food as a backup, some supplies, some different things, a little duct tape, a little rope, a little bug out bucket that you could take, and in the event that something happened and your main prepping location was compromised, you could fall back. You and your family would know where this is. Of course, you wouldn't want to tell anyone. And another thing to be warned about is the government does have the ability to see where you've been digging now. They have different radars and different systems where they can tell. They have ground penetrating radars and stuff. They can tell where you buried something. So if you are going to do that, you need to be real smart about it. And if you've got a big piece of woods or something, don't make it real obvious. Don't bury it right outside your back door. Go out in the back 40 somewhere that's really off the path and not convenient to get to, and do it there. At least there you'll have a better chance. And maybe if you hide it under the canopy of some trees and stuff like that, they might not be able to tell what you've been doing. So I don't know. That's a big if. I don't know how that stuff works, but I do know this: you need to watch out for it, because they're watching out for you and what you do. And also just the overhead satellite images that they have now. They can compare and contrast those satellite images that they get in every day, and they can tell what you've been up to. Even though you and I can't see it in lifetime, somebody can. So it'd be a good idea to have a few buckets, a few ammo cans around. The ammo cans inside the house are just great. You put them in your under your bed or in your closet or somewhere like that that's out of the way, and they're great for just storing ammo. I put in a couple of those little desiccants. I can't hardly say it, but the stuff that dries the moisture out of the air. If I get a new pair of shoes or something, or a new coat or whatever, and it comes with those, I always save those. And then there's a way you can dry those out in the oven and get the humidity out of them, the moisture out of them, and you put them back in with your firearms and your ammo, and that will keep the moisture from collecting inside of there. Of course, you want to keep that kind of stuff dry indoors, you know, in a climate controlled area. And most of that stuff, especially ammo, let's just put it this way. I've shot Mosin Nagant ammo before. That was from the 60s. So it almost doesn't have a shelf life. You know, 22 is a little more sensitive. I've actually had 22 get wet before, and because the 22, the rims aren't clamped on 22, that allows moisture to get in there quite easily. So watch out for that. Be aware of that sort of thing. But for your regular center fire rounds and shotgun shells, you're not going to have any problem with that. It's just really 22 that's probably the most susceptible to moisture, so be aware of that. Or any rim fire that doesn't have a big strong clamp on it right there around where the bullet is. So all right, and the last one here, we're going to wrap the video here, is some diatomaceous earth. This stuff is like a miracle, man. You can get this in a much bigger bag for a much cheaper price than this. You need to probably look at your local feed stores and stuff like that. Go around, talk to them. They may have to order it in, but one of my friends told me that you could get this stuff in like a 50-pound bag, and it was relatively cheap. And what this is good for is basically every kind of bug. I think every bug, I'm pretty sure, kills cockroaches, ants, silverfish, beetles, and other crawling insects as listed. It's good for fleas, ticks, all kinds of different stuff. Now, it takes a little while for it to work, but essentially this stuff is so small, at least it's small and sharp little pieces of this diatomaceous earth, some special kind of earth. And you can go research. It's pretty fascinating. But because these pieces are so small, it gets on the little insect's body, right? And it cuts them to pieces, basically. And so when they walk through this stuff, it gets all over them, and then it slices them up, and they die, which is what you want. So my wife was telling me about some of her friends that actually use this in their like bean storage and food store, rice storages and different things. Like, I don't know about rice, but definitely for beans, she was telling me. Now, you'd want to get the food grade. Apparently there's 2 different grades of this stuff, and I don't know. I doubt this here is food grade or meant for human consumption, because it's clearly listed as a bug killer. And you really wouldn't want to consume this stuff, but if you put it on your dry beans, let's say, for example, that would keep your bugs out pretty much indefinitely, therefore increasing the shelf life of those beans. Now, before you used them, you would want to rinse them out, because anytime you're making dry beans, you have to rinse them off anyways, and you have to soak them overnight or whatever to get that moisture to go back into the beans and make them good to eat. Well, you would just do another step if you did this, and you would rinse it off before you consume that, obviously. And again, do your own research on this. I'm just passing along we've never done this ourselves, but my wife said one of her friends at work, every time they put up beans in a jar or anything like that, they'll put in a little bit of this diatomaceous earth, and then they rinse it out next time before they consume it. And again, it's the food grade. So apparently there are 2 food grade, or a food grade and a non-food grade version of this. So make sure and do your research and get the right one. I don't want anyone getting sick or getting killed because of advice that I'm giving here. But again, I haven't tried that myself. Do some more research on it, but it sounded very fascinating. If there's a way that you can, even then, if you didn't want to put it directly on your food, maybe the answer is, you have all your jars out on a shelf, and you just sprinkle some of this around it, on the floor or on the little shelf in front of it, put a little line of it where the insects could not cross over to that. That may be sufficient, but do your own research on that. I am super impressed with this. We had a place when we bought this property over here, our new property, we have a little trailer. It's a pretty good sized trailer, but it's an old trailer, and they had been letting dogs living in there for quite a while. And we started calling the place Flea Bottom. And if you've watched Game of Thrones, you probably know what I'm referencing. But we started calling the place Flea Bottom because every single time we would walk down by this place, within 20 feet of it, the fleas, you could literally see them crawling up your legs. And we tried all kinds of other spray poisons and stuff. And my friend told me about this diatomaceous earth. I was like, I've never heard of it. But it's diatomaceous. Let's just put it that way. and it's incredible. So it killed all our fleas. We didn't have any problems. Now I can let my dog go down there. So I'd love to hear what your ideas are. If you think I missed anything, or if you think any of my ideas are silly, let me know down in the comments. I'd love to hear it. And until then, guys, we'll see you next time.